Today, we're not really telling a story. We're going to be taking apart an engine. We are going to deconstruct, piece by piece, what was probably the single most effective instrument of conquest in all of human history, the Mongol military. I mean, it's the great paradox of the 13th century, isn't it? How did armies from the steppes of Asia, a people without a single fortified city to their name, end up conquering established empires from China all the way to Eastern Europe? The image we all have in our heads is this chaotic, numberless swarm. But that image is just wrong. The Mongol conquests were not some accident of history. They weren't just the result of brute force. No, they were the product of a highly advanced, mathematically precise, and, well, ruthlessly efficient military system. It was a machine that was engineered for one purpose and one purpose only: rapid conquest. So let's start with the software, the operating system that ran this entire machine. And this wasn't about charismatic leaders inspiring undying loyalty. No, this was about a cold, mathematical structure that guaranteed absolute control and discipline on the battlefield. You see, Genghis Khan didn't just build an army. He reorganized Mongol society itself to be the army. He completely broke apart the old tribal loyalties and replaced them with this impersonal, scalable system where pretty much every man from 14 to 60 was eligible for military service. Your position wasn't based on who you knew, it was based on pure merit. And the foundation of the whole system was just a simple base 10 decimal structure. It all started with an arban, a unit of 10 men. 10 of those formed a jugun. 10 juguns made a minghan. And at the very top, you had the tümen, a powerful division of 10,000 warriors. This structure made the army incredibly flexible. Orders could travel down this unbreakable chain of command, and entire armies could be assembled or divided up with just mathematical precision. And the discipline this system enforced? It was absolute. There was zero room for individual error. If a single soldier deserted or retreated without being ordered to, it wasn't just his life on the line. His entire arbanan, all 10 of them, could face the death penalty. This made sure every single unit fought as one cohesive, unbreakable block. Okay, so that was the software. Now let's talk about the hardware. Every great operating system needs powerful equipment, right? Well, for the Mongols, that was the composite bow, an absolute masterpiece of engineering that gave them a decisive technological advantage. The science behind this weapon is just fascinating. It wasn't just a bent piece of wood. It was a laminate, layers of different materials, each with a very specific job. You had horn on the belly to resist compression, sinew on the back to resist tension, all of it held together with animal glue. This design created a bow that was small, light, and incredibly powerful, absolutely perfect for using on horseback. And it wasn't just the bow itself, it was how they used it. They used a specialized technique called the thumb draw, protected by a horn or bone ring. This allowed for a much faster, cleaner release than the three-finger method common in Europe. This was absolutely crucial for accuracy while you're riding at a full gallop, letting a warrior turn and fire in literally any direction. So how effective was it really? Well, let's talk numbers. This was the tactical range for a targeted shot, 175 meters. That's nearly the length of 2 football fields. This range allowed Mongol light cavalry to just harass and demoralize enemy formations long before they could even get close enough to fight back. But the bow's maximum potential? That was even more staggering. 536 meters? Now, this isn't some theoretical number. It's the actual distance of a shot that was recorded on a 13th century stone inscription. Now, it wasn't a targeted shot, of course, but it just shows the sheer power they could project, raining arrows on an enemy army from an incredible distance. But a weapon, no matter how good, is useless if you can't get it to the battlefield. And this brings us to the logistical genius that powered the Mongol machine, the systems that allowed for their legendary speed and endurance. The secret to their speed was actually pretty simple. Horses, lots of them. Each Mongol warrior had a string of 3 or 4 different mounts. When one horse got tired, he'd just jump onto a fresh one. This allowed the army to cover up to 120 kilometers in a single day, a pace that was just unimaginable to their enemies. And they traveled incredibly light. You can forget about those long, slow supply trains. Their rations were designed for extreme self-sufficiency. They carried things like dried meat curd and a type of powdered jerky called Borts. In an emergency, a warrior could even cut a vein on his horse's neck for a bit of sustenance. This let the army operate deep in enemy territory for weeks at a time. So how do you coordinate this massive, fast-moving machine? Well, you build an information superhighway. The YAM was this incredible network of relay stations all across the empire. It wasn't just a postal service, it was the nervous system of the military. It allowed generals to coordinate these complex, multi-pronged invasions across thousands of kilometers with unparalleled speed. Okay, so now we get to the most infamous and probably the most misunderstood part of the Mongol system, their use of psychological warfare. This wasn't about rage or mindless cruelty. This was a cold, calculated strategy. You have to understand, Mongol terror had a very clear military objective. It was meant to break an enemy's will to fight before a battle even began. The goal was to make resistance seem so pointless, so horrifying, that cities would just open their gates. If you surrendered, you were often treated with clemency. If you resisted, you were annihilated. This quote here, it reveals the chillingly effective mechanism they used. After a city that resisted was taken, the Mongols would systematically massacre the population, but they would deliberately let a few people escape. Those terrified survivors became their most effective propaganda tool, spreading stories of the horror and making sure the next city down the road would probably surrender without a fight. And their pragmatism was just absolute. Take the Harash tactic. This involved forcing prisoners of war to the front lines during a siege. They would be the ones to carry the ladders and absorb the first volleys of arrows, saving the lives of the highly trained Mongol warriors. It was brutal, it was efficient, and it was perfectly in line with their philosophy of using every single available asset to win with minimal Mongol losses. So when you put all of these pieces back together, the picture that emerges is crystal clear. This wasn't a horde. It was a fully integrated system where every single element, from the command structure to the design of an arrowhead to the use of terror, was optimized for one single goal. So we've deconstructed this machine into its 4 core components. You have a mathematical organization that ensured discipline. You have superior technology that dominated the battlefield, a logistical system that gave them unmatched speed, and a psychological strategy that completely shattered enemy morale. And all of that brings us to one final thought. The Mongols created what might be the most efficient engine of war in history. And it leaves us with a question to ponder. Not about morality, not about good versus evil, but purely about mechanics. What is the ultimate outcome when military efficiency is perfected?